Don't forget to join us on January 24th. Trump 1 year later, a red tie gala. Get your tickets. Tickets.tonykatz.com. I am Tony Katz. Is Pete Hegseth up to the job as Secretary of War? Secretary of Defense, if you want to be that person about it. And the answer is maybe. But we haven't defined what the job is. And that's going to be necessary in order to figure it out. Because the smears from the political left on Pete Hegseth are massive. And they're actually clouding from our ability to ask the question and answer it honestly. I'm Tony Katz. The show is Tony Katz Today. That's a Master Blends 3 right there. That's what we're smoking today. Let the show begin. Let's go. If you look at the headline over there at Newsmax from Senator Schmidt, Eric Schmidt of Missouri, I try and say it proper. Dems desperate to smear Pete Hegseth. Well, no kidding. Smearing Hegseth is the thing that moves and motivates them most of all. If you listen to Hakeem Jeffries, the not so esteemed minority leader in the House, you get this.
This and more, the House Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries of New York. Leader Jeffries, thanks so much for joining us. First of all, what's your response to what we heard there from President Trump and Defense Secretary Hegseth about that boat strike?
Well, there's a lot of explaining that the White House needs to do. Listen, at the end of the day, the buck stops with the president and the so-called Secretary of Defense. And it's not clear to me that the so-called Secretary of Defense is being truthful in this instance.
The so-called Secretary of Defense. There is never a moment where the Democratic Party is not interested in trying to subvert the chain of command. Did I say hello, Tony Katz? Tony Katz Today. Guys, good to be with you. Glad to be here. 833-468-8669. 833. Got Tony. He's not the so-called Secretary of Defense. He would be the so-called Secretary of War. At least that could be seen as somewhat accurate, Hakeem Jeffries. But you're not interesting. You're not interested in an honest conversation. You're interested in assault. You're interested in attack. You're interested in vilification. This is why we hate you. And it's personal because everything about you is personal. You can't even begin to address the situation. If we're going to talk about Venezuela, should we be engaged in these attacks on these drug boats? I don't lose sleep over drug boats being destroyed. But there's a question about whether or not this is something we should be engaged in as we are. Or should this, as we've discussed right here, far better than Hakeem Jeffries could ever dream, that this should be an act of war and it should be declared. In which case, where the hell is Congress? And if you say to me, well, Republicans won't do it, I would say to you, that's pretty damn cheap. Where are the Democrats to say, let's go declare war? He's not making that argument, is he? Wait, let's listen. Is Hakeem Jeffries making that argument?
And so that's why there's going to be a complete and thorough bipartisan congressional investigation in both the House and the Senate so we can uncover the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. That's what the American people deserve.
Why do you call him so-called Defense Secretary?
This is the most unqualified Secretary of Defense in American history. I called for him to be terminated several months ago in the aftermath of the Signalgate scandal. And there's still some additional information, and I think will be revealed to the American people as to why that was so problematic.
Now, allow me. The idea that Pete Hegseth is unqualified, that is a conversation predicated on what? He wasn't a part of the Department of Defense before. He wasn't a general. He wasn't somebody who Hakeem Jeffries deemed acceptable. Lloyd Austin was deemed acceptable by Hakeem Jeffries. Lloyd Austin, the former defense secretary under Joe Biden. But that guy went AWOL. He went AWOL. That's what he did. He didn't tell his superiors, the president of the United States, the superior, that he was going to have surgery. And he's like, well, that's my private business. The hell, it's your private business. What the surgery is for, I don't even know if that's your private business. You're the Secretary of Defense. You're not going to tell your boss that you're going to be having surgery? You'll be out for a couple days? I'm going to be told that he is the one who is qualified? No, I won't put up with that. But I'm not going to sit here and make a claim that Pete Hegseth is perfectly qualified. He's never run an organization like this. Never once run an organization like this. That has to be discussed. That is an acceptable conversation. I could say that Sean Duffy never ran an organization like the Transportation Department, but seems to be doing a very good job of it. Hegseth seems to be doing a very good job when it comes to the idea that we need a lethal force. We need a lethal fighting force. And it simply, quite simply, cannot be one that is focused on DEI or other madness. He is correct. He is absolutely correct. And I applaud on every single level, the push in that direction. I will say that it could be possible, if not probable, that he does not have the experiences in running this type of organization to make sure that all the parts know what the other parts are doing. I could also attribute that to a growing pain. There are changes being made. If I were to trust my sources, and I don't distrust them, the enlisted, they're thrilled. The officers, less so. Well, are the officers not thrilled because Hegseth is more of a hard ass, or because the job is not actually getting done and there is a miss happening when it comes to readiness and when it comes to the future of the nation? I don't have an answer for that. It is possible for different people in the ranks to see the secretary differently. I see this push towards readiness as something of value, something of importance, something of necessity. The elimination of, for example, DEI, and publicly stating so. I would attribute the rise in those people enlisting in the military to Pete Hegseth. 1,000% to Pete Hegseth. Now you say to me, you mean to Donald Trump? The work had to get done, and he was the guy doing the work, so I gave it to Hegseth on this one. If you tell me that more of the officer class are bothered, well, maybe they've got more work to do. Or maybe indeed some things are falling through the cracks. But I think one interesting test of the leadership is what's going on off the coast of Venezuela and the Caribbean, and the attacking of these drug boats. I'll say it again. I don't have an issue with this. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that we don't have the data on these drug boats. I say if Congress wanted to have more control of this, if Congress wanted to be the ones who were more in the place of deciding and asking questions, let them go ask and say, hey, you want to have a war with Venezuela? Well, that's cool by us, but you're going to have to declare it. And to do that, you're going to have to come to us to declare war, because only we could declare war. Where is that moment from Hakeem Jeffries? Where is Hakeem Jeffries making the statement, we have to declare war? So if I ask that question about the political right, it is, well, they don't want to get on the bad side of Trump, so they're just going to leave it be. Maybe. But I found that people who are elected and have, constitutional responsibilities, they like their constitutional responsibilities. That's kind of what the job is there for. It's like when Trump got elected and you just need to approve every member of his cabinet. And the senator was like, we're the U.S. Senate. Advising consent is a real thing. And you know what? We're going to ask questions. We're going to go through it. This is our job. We don't care who the president is. You don't get to tell us not to do our job. And people got angry, and Trump tried to push, and the Republicans in the Senate were like, settle down. And what do you think happened? So if Republicans in the House said, hey, you got to come to us and make the case regarding Venezuela, they're more than within their rights, and they could do it. But you argue, the political right, they're just simping for Trump. Oh, gosh. What word do I dislike more than simping? I don't know if there is. I do not know if there is a word I like less. Which word do I like less than simping, I guess is it. Well, the Democrats could say, hey, we demand that you come to us and ask for a declaration of war, but they're not doing that because they would rather complain about it. They would rather complain about what is happening. So you could have a situation in both cases where you don't have anybody saying, hey, we have a congressional responsibility here because politically it's better for us. If that's the way they want to play it, then I can't argue that Hegseth nor President Trump are doing anything wrong. I mean, I can state so in a moral case, but I can't state so in terms of the executive branch, the commander-in-chief, going about what he thinks is necessary to keep the country safe. Can't. So what does any of this have to do with whether or not Pete Hegseth is up to the task? The desperation to smear him. Because the answer is attack, 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 attack. Not, hey, how do we have a better Department of Defense? Not, hey, how do we have a better country? None of that. None of that is the story here. Rather, the story is, how do we politically destroy? Can't run a country this way. So when I'm asked whether or not Hegseth is up to the task, the answer is I'm not 100% sure because there is no trusting the Democratic Party regarding what they're seeing as a result. And right now, I'm not so sure the Republican Party would say, hey, we've got a problem here. What do I hear from others? It isn't as good as it could be. I believe that about the FBI, by the way. I believe that about the DOJ. I don't believe that about Health and Human Services. I don't believe that about HUD. I don't believe that about transportation. I don't believe that about the Interior. I don't believe that about energy. I don't believe that about labor even. And I'm no fan of Lori Chavez DeRemer. Certainly Secretary of State, that office is humming. These other offices, not so much. That's what I'm hearing. And when it comes to the DOJ, that's what we're seeing. It's okay to say. It's okay to note and to notice. But if Democrats only want to go for the smear and go for the attack and engage the same vitriol of Hegseth from day one as now, then nothing about their modus operandi has changed. And why would anybody listen to them? And when Hakeem Jeffries says so-called Secretary of Defense, it's just because he's a weak guy. He's a child. He's not a man. He's not capable of leadership. This is playground name-calling bullcrap. And there's no place for it. The stakes are too great. You got a problem, you got to say so. You're such a coward, Hakeem Jeffries. What do they call him? Timu Barak? It's so good. It's so good. You can't even say Congress declares war and we demand that you come to us. You won't even stand up for Congress because you're such a child. You would rather name call than do the hard work. Is Hegseth up to the task? On some things, yes, and maybe on some things, no. Is everything going well in Venezuela? Well, if I hear about ground troops in Venezuela, I'm going to have words. As for the drug boats, if Congress isn't going to act, well, the people can rally. But if Congress isn't going to act, I don't see how the president would do anything except exactly what he's already doing. I'm Tony Katz. This is Tony Katz Today. Oh, that's weird. Did you guys just see my camera go out like that? That was weird as can be. It just went right out. Huh. Don't know why. Don't know. Sometimes gets a little mind of its own. Good to be with you, Tony Katz. Tony Katz Today, guys. Thank you so much. I'm glad you're here as well. The disdain one should have for Hakeem Jeffries. He's a child. That's all. If we think we can run a country via name calling, we're nuts. And by the way, you can apply that to Trump if you want. Just nutty. Absolutely nutty. What else do we have to get to? Oh, yes, citizenship on the census. I approve. I approve. I've also got my conversation coming up with Noah Rothman. Interesting stuff. Interesting take. I hope you will enjoy about Venezuela and about Somali nationals. And his take is, I appreciate what it doesn't do is engage, I think, the larger scale problem, which we'll get into, guys. I'm glad you're here. Let's get back to the show. All right, now we're coming back to the show. That's all right, man. You didn't do anything wrong, Landon. Producer Landon's in my ear. So the move now from the Republican Party is to add a citizenship question to the 2030 census. Tony Katz Today. What are you doing, everybody? Good to be with you. Find everything at TonyKatz.com, YouTube.com/Tony Katz. Live streaming as we speak. First person here gets a cookie. Hold on, this just in. We're out of cookies. So close. House Oversight and Accountability Committee approving a bill that would add a question about citizenship to the census. The measure cleared on a 20-19 party line vote. Why wouldn't you ask about citizenship? The only reason not to ask about citizenship is because you're okay with non-citizens being counted. Now, this goes to the idea of all persons, right? The 14th Amendment and all persons. Hold on, let's see. Let's see. It's the 14th Amendment, right? Let's double check ourselves here. Make sure we've got this right. Hold on. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Yes, representatives shall be apportioned among the several states according to their respective numbers, counting the whole number of persons in each state, excluding Indians not taxed. So it's this idea of who are you counting and whether or not you're counting American citizens or all citizens. And whether or not the idea of whole number of persons in each state would by definition refer to Americans or subject to the jurisdiction thereof. I want the argument here. I want the fight here on this because I want to get this settled. If you are a believer that it should count for more than just American citizens, you're a believer that representation is not for American citizens. Even if you were to agree, even if you were to believe that whole persons means all people regardless of citizenship, you're a believer that non-citizens should have an equal say in representation as citizens, and that's screwed up. So no, I do not mind the question being asked. What if you ask the question just to get the answer? It's wrong to ask the question? I think it's wrong to ID me to get Sudafed. But what can I say? I'm just an American with a cold. The idea that we need to be ID'd, well, you know, you can make drugs out of that. Have you gone to the internet? You can make drugs out of anything. I just want to feel better. I just want the head congestion to stop. So I like the move here. I do. I don't have an argument against. Justices have ruled that asking about citizenship is legal. But when it was a prior census, it was an issue of how Trump tried to rush it into the census as a question. That it doesn't seem to be the case as they're getting started early. And see, things like this is exactly why Republicans need to win the midterms in 2026, something that we have been discussing for a while now. And no, I am not seeing enough Republican movement to it. That said, we had a special election in Tennessee last night, and the Republican was victorious and won by 9 points. And what the left will tell you is, well, this is a district Trump won by 22 points. Bad news for Republicans. There's a lot to unpack here. I don't believe it was bad news for Republicans, but I do believe that Republicans have a problem. Something they have not been addressing, that we have, that the Trump brand is different than the Republican brand, and these Marxists are not going to quit. They're just going to multiply. Keep it here. This is Tony Katz Today. So here's what we've got going on. We have got ourselves... just shine that in my face. You're like, Tony, are you pulling out a laptop? Yes, I most certainly am. I've got like 9 things going on at the same time. It's nuts. I have got this great interview with Noah Rothman that I'm going to bring you. Cannot wait. That's going to be very, very good. So I'll bring that to you right now. And then I'm going to break down this Tennessee race because the issue is that Is it bad for Republicans? No. Everything's bad for Republicans right now. But a half an economic turnaround solves the problem. You still have to go out and sell your story and sell it better. There is unquestionably going to be more Marxist, communists, so-called democratic socialists running than you have ever seen before. That's happening for sure. Can't be denied, can't be debated. And you're going to have to deal with that. That's what it is Republicans are up against. And then, of course, the recognition that Republicans are not as popular as Trump. They're just not as popular as Trump. And they have not yet been able to figure out how to cross that Rubicon. And they need to. They 10,000% need to. Hold on one second.
The digital revolution has affected all of traditional.
Okay. So we're going to come back to the show. I don't think my volume's on here. No, it's not. It is not. Groovy. And that's that. Right on. I will get to this conversation coming up.
As we go through the
There it is. Sorry about that. Hold on. Wait. No, I have not heard they're making internment camps for the homeless in Utah. What? Hold on. Did you get this from the same people who told Candace Owens that the French are out to get her? No? Okay. Ooh. You've got a question you've had for me for 3 months? Well, what's your question? All right, we're coming to it right here. Noah Rothman, let's go. Sorry, I had to do some technical stuff for a second. I was quiet. I didn't mean to be. Apologize. Noah Rothman joins me right now from nationalreview.com. He has written about this, about Pete Hegseth. Hegseth Feels the Heat is his latest piece over there. And as a guy who certainly follows military operations, the geopolitics, I don't think this is the first time we've seen the U.S. military come back and make sure that a target is destroyed. When you first read the story versus now, as you may understand the story, how did you proceed through it?
That's a great way to start this. So I greeted the Washington Post story with skepticism, not because, in part because everybody was playing very much to type in a scene-chewing fashion. And if your priors are being confirmed like that, your skepticism should be raised. My second point of skepticism was the degree to which the Secretary of Defense, War, whatever you want to call him, was taking an operational approach at the very granular level to this mission, which would be very out of keeping with how the defense secretary manages things. The New York Times story, which subsequently, as you said, called into question, in my view, the least important detail of the story, which was Pete Hegseth saying, "Kill them now," and one, seeing them, their viscera displayed all over the ocean. That really doesn't matter in a legal context. It does matter whether the secretary's orders were executed, as the secretary says, by Admiral Mitch Bradley, who seems to be being thrown under the bus here in ways that I think probably produce some consternation inside the Pentagon. Was the target these survivors? Was the target the boat? That matters. The degree to which cabinet level officials gave these orders and their subordinates acted on them. All this stuff is really live. And, you know, the Hegseth was at this cabinet meeting yesterday saying, we have all this information, we have all this targeting detail, we have all this intelligence, we know what we're doing. So give that information to lawmakers in a classified setting. They need it. There's no congressional buy-in for this campaign, such as it is. There's a lot of prospects for things to go wrong if the targeting list expands. And some even more disturbing details. This strike occurred in September 2nd. In the months following, there have been subsequent strikes, one on another boat where there were survivors. Those survivors were interdicted and repatriated to their countries of origin, suggesting that there was not enough evidence even to hold them in a military tribunal or Gitmo, for example, in the absence of probable cause. And we had the resignation in early October of Admiral Adam Halsey, who was overseeing SOCOM, Southern Command. And we don't know the reasons why he resigned, but they came at a very conspicuous moment at the time when this operation is ramping up. So there is a lot of smoke here. And just because the Washington Post got one detail wrong, I find that to be, while amusing, and it confirms my skepticism of that story, it doesn't get at the larger details. And the larger details, as you say, are as profound as War and Peace on a very broad strategic scale.
Yeah, I have made the argument that I have no issue with the taking out of the drug boats. We might disagree about that. I would have a hard time believing that, and certainly would find myself with a sense of dismay, that we're just randomly shooting at boats because it's good optics, and we don't have some level of intelligence that indeed these are boats bringing drugs to the United States. But while I've heard Senator Rand Paul speak about this and others engage in a little bit of puffery, if Congress wants to do something about this, their job is to say, whoa, 11 warships, 15,000 troops. You're engaging in an act of war on Venezuela. That's our department. You have to come to us and ask us to declare war, and we demand that you do so. I haven't seen that from Congress.
Yeah, well, we have a very supine Congress right now, but we won't have one forever. This administration has been rather contemptuous toward Congress. Members of Congress will freely say as much, including the president's allies. But as special election results this year suggest, Republicans are staring down the prospect of losing one or both chambers in 2026. And the president should, rather that this information that he's safeguarding now with relation to the targets that he's striking or the rationale for this campaign in the first place, he should hope that information comes out on his terms and not the Democratic Party's, because it will come out.
Talking to Noah Rothman of National Review, I move it over to this conversation.
Before we depart from Venezuela, can we talk a little bit about the strategy that I think the administration is pursuing?
Oh gosh, yeah, go right ahead. I thought you were coming to a close on that. I do want to.
Well, I mean, first of all, like, my problem with the drug boat strikes is that they're illegal, point blank.
You think so?
Well, yeah, because we define in American statute a very big distinction between terrorism and narcotics trafficking. Making a portmanteau of those words, narco-terrorism, does not magically convey legal legitimacy to this campaign. Congress has to authorize it. There's no reading of the 2001 post 9/11 authorization for the use of military force against terrorist operatives linked to Al-Qaeda that gets you to Latin America. There's no good faith reading of the statute there. And we should want to enforce the law qua law, by virtue of the rule of law in this country, because it benefits the party out of power as much as the party in power. Democrats every administration builds on the precedents that they're bequeathed. And I don't think we would want to see Democrats engage in this kind of a very cagey foreign policy that completely cuts out the lawmaking institution in this country.
But
I'm utterly opaque.
And listen, if the argument is that the House and the Senate are going to do whatever it is Trump wants, and they're not going to push back against him because the relationship is contentious. Well, if it's already in contention, it's already an issue, let's just go continue making it an issue. I find it sometimes strange to think that Congress won't engage in the process that is solely theirs.
Yeah.
We saw the Senate say to President Trump when he got into office for the second term, we're going to confirm everybody the way we see fit confirming them, not the way you do, because Senate confirmation is part of a senator's job, and you're not taking my job from me. It would seem weird that they would not be willing to do their job here, considering a declaration of war is the top job.
Yeah, they don't want to do their job on a range of fronts, to say nothing of this one. But it's in the president's interest, not much less Congress's, president's interest, to get a buy-in from Congress and make them stakeholders of what could be coming. If this deadline passes and the president authorizes strikes on regime targets, we don't know the scale of that operation. It could be quite broad. And things go wrong in a kinetic operation. Nothing goes according to plan upon first contact with the enemy, and the enemy gets a vote. So you will have a chaotic operation. But what is the president's strategic goal here? It's very hard to tell. A lot of people are freelancing rationales. The one that I think is most compelling to me is one that I actually am very favorable towards, because the Maduro regime and the Chavez regime it succeeded are absolute menaces, anti-American forces in the region that are produce endless headaches for us and jeopardize our national security. So the goal to get is a regime change operation. And the regime change would produce a more stable social covenant in Venezuela, which would not be forcing out refugees into the Triangle in Latin America and ultimately to the United States. It would also eject an anti-American regime from the region, which would help starve Cuba, draws a lot of money from Venezuela and Venezuelan oil sales, help starve the Cuban regime, which is another thorn in our side, deprive the Chinese and the Russians of a foothold in the region, and make the world safe for democracy. Now, that's the sort of thing I can get behind. But the administration, which has argued this presidency from the outset, starting in 2015, has argued fundamentally that regime change operations designed to secure more stable social covenants elsewhere in the world are stupid wastes of time, and nation building doesn't work. So how are they going to articulate that rationale for this campaign, even if it is the one that prevails in this administration, when it so contradicts the political narrative that the Trump administration has established for itself?
And so we're clear. It's Nicolas Maduro did steal the election. He stole it twice. The world would be better off without him. And yes, us having a better relationship and a real relationship with a friendly Venezuela would do wonders in keeping China and Russia at bay. Talking to Noah Rothman of National Review, nationalreview.com. I now move it over, for the sake of time, because I'll dig deeper gladly at another time. I move over to this conversation about Somalia, this welfare scandal, the $1 billion plus stolen from the people of Minnesota, from the American people, based on these COVID schemes, and saying, oh, we're a group called Feeding the Future, saying we're feeding 18,000 children a day. They're not feeding anybody. This has led to President Trump saying we're going to get rid of the temporary protected status for these Somalis, and they have to go. Your argument, if I understand you correctly, is that the going after the people who engaged in the fraud proper, the idea of the broad brush, a serious issue.
Oh, yeah. So there are two ways to evaluate this story. The first is that there has been a welcome discovery on the part of the national press of something that people and conservatives in Minnesota have been complaining about for decades. A lot of this work is built on Scott Johnson's work, who's been writing for conservative outlets for 20 years about the scams that were being executed here. And they only just ramped up after COVID. For the last 5 years, only about 2 of which, 2.5 at most, could be described as pandemic years. Over $1 billion of taxpayer funds were absorbed by these false charities. They were not just food either, like the notion that they were providing meals that they weren't, but autism support, which has been abused by many more people than Somali immigrants, and is arguably responsible for the explosion of non-severe autism cases. Read, by the way, e.g., debatable spectrum cases, which account for the entirety of the increased diagnosis in autism. So we're creating financial incentives in order to distort our picture of the medical outlook in this country. This has been a problem for a very long time, and it's valuable that we've seen Democrats and press outlets jump on this thing now that they no longer have to run block for people like Tim Walz or Joe Biden To expose this sort of thing would be politically inconvenient. Now that they're gone, those obstacles have fallen away. I am discomfited, however, by a lot of the Republican talk, including the president, who repeatedly yesterday called these people garbage. I mean, I'm not even just making up the quotes. The quotes are really quite repulsive, talking about the whole breadth of Somali society as individuals who are garbage people who are culturally disinclined to acclimate into the American experiment. I think that's fundamentally false. I think the notion that this country can absorb and assimilate anybody from any part of the world as long as they buy into the American creed is fundamental and also observable across the swath of 250 years of American history. You know, the notion that a certain type of people who maybe have a different religion and are criminally inclined or should not be incorporated into the American ethos. And it's the same thing that people said about the Italians in 1924, 1924. The Minnesota Scandinavian model, as they say it, is a system that just simply cannot work with open borders. The Scandinavian model doesn't work with open borders, and a lot of Scandinavian countries, with Sweden being the exception, I think, observe that. But the problem that I think is the foremost one in Minnesota is that it is run by Democrats who no longer believe in the assimilation engine in this country. Assimilation works when you have environmental inducements, when you can't navigate society outside your ethnic enclave without learning English, without understanding some cultural precepts, shared cultural precepts. Multiculturalism goes to war with that notion, and that has been the abiding philosophy of the Democratic left for the last 30 years in this country. Multiculturalism assumes there's nothing worth assimilating into. I think a lot of people would agree with that on the left, that America doesn't have a culture that's worth assimilating into.
Certainly what they've taught, right?
Certainly what they've taught. So you have a system of very, very robust benefits, low social trust, and the removal of all inducements to assimilate. That's how you get the left bank of the Seine in Paris with these ghettos that are just no-go zones, airs of menace if you happen to wander into them. That's how you get the condition that we're in now. So I think the right's reaction to say, well, these people are just disinclined to integrate with the United States, I think that's false. I think it's, first of all, it's a generalization that's never supported. And we should not be extending the guilt for discrete crimes of individuals who are named in charging documents to their whole ethnic caste or tribe. That is bigoted, fundamentally bigoted. And I think it's just false. I think the problem here is that the left in the cities that they own are no longer assimilating these immigrants. And the way to stop that is to say these cities are failing their citizens, and to say it early and often from the bully pulpit of the presidency, and to make these people feel shame and explain themselves. That's how politics in this country works. That's how you make an issue and how you make a wedge issue that favors you. You don't simply say, well, I'm going to solve this problem, only I can fix. And with a pen swipe, invalidate a whole population, which only gives Democrats more opportunities to say, well, look, they're just as racist as we always said they were. It seems like bad politics to me.
And I would only argue in response, and I don't have the time to dig into it now, we will do this again, that your take is not wrong, except if we have in America a culture that states that one does not have to assimilate, it doesn't take away from the fact that there might indeed be, yes, cultures, societies that are simply incompatible with how we view the world and how we view ourselves. And that's a conversation I would like to take up at another time. Noah Rothman, I appreciate you being with us. More to get to. I'm Tony Katz. Welcome back, everybody. Tony Katz. Tony Katz today. Good to be with you. Lots and lots and lots of comments. And so this is one of them. Islamists will not assimilate into American culture except to blend in for the purpose of later nefarious activities. And I don't think that you're wrong. What I liked so much about Noah's conversation is first, I want you to know that I believe that to be true. I believe that if you say everybody from Somalia is a bad person, well, you're expecting a lot of people to say that a lot of people are bad people. And therefore, you can't trust them, and therefore you can't have them in the country and everything else. So that's a very that is a very, very bad place to be. But he brought up something a little bit different. He said that we have a culture that pushes this concept of multiculturalism and not being an American, which is to say progressive culture. So it is certainly, and I don't think I'm speaking out of school here, he's agreeing that progressive culture, leftism, goes against the American ethos, the American way of life, and America's possibilities, because it goes against the very idea of assimilation. If we are to agree that that is true, that the American left has no belief in assimilation, and we can see this in a myriad of ways, for example, the hyphenization of America. What the bloody heck is African American, Mexican American, Colombian American, Irish American? What? There's American, and that's it. That's it. The hyphen is an absolute problem, and this isn't the first time it has come up, because it creates separation as opposed to assimilation. So if the left is hell-bent on this and works to implement this, our issue is not so much with Somalis. Our issue is with the left. And if that is the case, and it is now so incredibly ingrained in institutions, how does one deal with the problem? And yes, indeed, there are incompatible cultures. You can go live your life any way you want, but if you want to live with us, there is a way that we live. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying so. I think we should say so. That's my take. Anyway, stay right there, guys. I know it's going to go dark for a second. Don't worry. It'll be one of the reasons I like speaking with Noah Rothman is that I love the pushback, and I certainly love his point of view, and he's bringing it there. And I think people are going to disagree and say, "Oh, you're just anti-Trump." I don't think that's his argument in the slightest. Tony Katz today. We went so long there. I apologize. We're a little short for time right now, but it's if we're going to make the argument that anybody can be an American citizen, I would agree with that. If we're going to now make the argument that the political left has made it impossible, or made it so difficult and made it okay for people to not be a part of the American experiment, how do I deal with that? Well, you stop the political left and you change their mode of thinking. What happens in the interim while things get destroyed? This is where the friction is. Keep it here. I'm Tony Katz. This is Tony Katz Today. What's with that? That's weird. Much better. Much better. A lot of show to get to. I'm going to break down the Tennessee special election. I will answer every question I possibly can. Glad you guys are here. Hang loose. Smoke them if you got them. I've got them, so I'm smoking. I'm smoking them. All right? Kick back, relax. We'll be back in a bit. Welcome back, guys. Tony Katz Today. What's going on? How are you? Good to be with you. Hour 2 is coming right up. You'll forgive, there was a technical issue, and I was working through the technical issue while on the show. And that is not a way one should do that. Did I mention I need a director? We are hiring. That much is true. That is happening. We've got the story of this right here. That's a hard one to see right there. How about we do it like that? That's what happened in Tennessee. That's the 7th district right there. Look at that gerrymandered district. My gosh. Look at Nashville in the blue. Look at pretty Nashville in the blue right there. Funny. The Democrat Marxist, Afton Ben, says she hates Nashville, and Nashville still voted for her. Nashville. It's embarrassing. It really is. But all numbers say something, just not always what you wanted to say. And that's what we're going to break down. What do these numbers actually tell us? What does it mean? How do you now go about looking at the midterms? Well, I have got that. I've got it all for you. So leave your comments. By the way, I'll throw those back up there. Boom. Hey, there it is. Just that pretty. And we'll go forward from there. Yeah, I feel bad. I never like to disrupt anything, but had to get handled. And so it got handled. So anyway, we are back with it. Now, I wanted to answer some questions that were in the chat, and someone was asking me specifically about something in Dearborn. What do you mean by the Dearborn, Michigan situation brewing? So there's not enough there in that question to give me something I can answer, because I'm not sure which situation you could be referring to. We could be talking about two very different things. So with that, let's get a little more specific, and then I can answer the question. The radio show is about to start. Let's go to that, because it's what I do. The special election is said and done, and Matt Van Epps, the Republican, takes the Tennessee 7th District. Mark Green, he stepped out of Congress saying there was an opportunity in the private sector that I could not pass up. Translation, my God, the money was amazing. I can appreciate that. Money, a lifestyle can make you leave a gig, surely. Tony Katz Today. Good to be here. Good to be with you. 833-468-8669. 833 Got Tony. Live streaming over at YouTube. Check it out for yourself. YouTube.com/Tony Katz. Get in the chat room. Be a part of what's happening. A lot of people with a lot of opinions on what happened in Tennessee, because the Republican Matt Van Epps beat the Marxist, Democrat, I repeat myself, by 9 points. And when you take a look at the map, that map is all red except for Nashville. So the 7th District runs from the top of Tennessee to the bottom of Tennessee. It does. It's the full width of Tennessee. Or is that the length of Tennessee? Depends on how you look at it. The only area, the only county that voted for Ben is Davidson County. In Davidson County, that's where Nashville is. She got 77.7% of the vote. Davidson County. Everywhere else voted for the Republican. I'm glad that he won, because she is what she is, and what she is a Marxist. We have not heard the last from her. She made this very, very clear in her own statements upon giving her concession speech.
And tonight, because I believe in Southern hospitality, I called the Congressman-elect, Matt Van Epps, and I had one question for him. What will define what happens next? Do not let the Affordable Care Act subsidies expire. Do not raise healthcare costs for working families in Tennessee.
Translation, hey, I know I lost the election, but you should do everything I was going to do, because, yeah. By the way, the outfit, is that to prove that she's like true country? She came in 4th place in the Dolly Parton lookalike contest, and this is how she goes out there. No shame. And she also hinted that she will run again. And for the record, why not? Nothing about this election should be taken by the Marxist, by the communist, by the Mamdani faithful, that there's anything wrong with their position, that their position is unaccepted by America. Trump won the district by 22. Van Epps only won it by 9. Proof positive that if we had more time, we would win this, and that this is the right approach. The Marxist is not deterred. The Marxist is nothing but faith. It's funny, for people who don't believe in religion, man, they got a lot of faith in their very bad ideas. Oh, it's cult-esque, their devotion to the Marxism. You will see more of this woman by the name of Afton, first name Afton, Ben, last name Behn. You will see more of Marxists and a communist and a so-called democratic socialist, which is not a real thing, all across the country. and they're going to run in state houses, and they're going to run in municipalities and everywhere. And young people, people in their teens and people in their 20s being told that this somehow is a value and that America is somehow bad are going to vote for this, as if there's a great rethink out there. Communism is a failed experiment everywhere, but that failed experiment comes at the price of lives. Not just livelihoods, lives, and generations that it takes to overcome it. We have a lot of work to do. No one should take from this election in Tennessee that the Marxist is going to stop. They are going to triple down. They are going to misread the data to their advantage, because what else could they possibly do? Learn from it? And they are going to nominate even more crazed leftists to run with even more crazed policies. More ways to take your dollars, more ways to separate you from your children, more ways to make you dependent on government, more ways to take away individual freedoms in favor of some collective nonsense. 9 points is what Van Epps wins by. Now, there is an interesting way to look at this data as well. This was, I'm pretty sure, was CNN right there.
I think that's the wrong lesson to take away here. This is Trump did win it by 22, but Marsha Blackburn in the midterm in 2018, when Trump was unpopular, only won the district by half a point. So Matt Van Epps is going to win it by 9 tonight. And the lesson to take away from this is Democrats picked their own candidate. They had 3 state representatives running. They picked the liberal wingnut, the person who said she hated country music, she hated Nashville, she was uncomfortable with prayer, she wanted to bully state troopers. That's the problem Democrats face in primaries all over the country in 2020.
Yeah. I don't know if that's the actual issue here, but I want to get into the numbers. The 22 and the 9%. Not that Democrats picked the craziest of the crazy. They picked the craziest of the crazy and lost by 9 points. They don't see that as a problem. And it is I believe, a misread. I believe that was Brad Todd speaking. A misread to think that they're going to now select better candidates. Only Republicans have to worry about whether or not, what does their candidate have to have? Not an upstanding candidate. Candidate with credibility. There's a word for it. It'll come to me. They will pick the most insane, the most radical, and people who lie point blank about what it is they're going to do. This much is clear. The story here is the 9 points. If you were with me back in 2024, 2 weeks after the election, I held an event, understanding the election in 3 bourbons. And it was like 120 people and bought their tickets, and we served bourbon throughout, and it was hilarious. But I provided and I presented an entire show breaking down the numbers and making sure people understood the numbers. And one of the things that we went over, and we discussed it here on this show, is that Trump will tell you that he won the swing states, right? Trump won the swing states, did so well in the swing states. Look at how great he did in the swing states, right? You've got Arizona and Nevada, and then you've got Wisconsin, Michigan. Where else did you have swing states? Not Ohio. I'm forgetting the other swing states right now. If you take a look at the swing states, Trump wins and the Senate candidate loses. The Republican loses in Arizona, loses in Nevada. Sam Brown lost to Jackie Rosen. It's still a sin. Lose in Michigan, lose in Wisconsin. They lost. How in the world does that happen? The people came in and they voted for Trump. How do they not vote for the Senate candidate? And this is where we learned through this data that there is a very large distinction between the Trump brand and the Republican brand. And the Trump brand was very strong. And the Trump brand was going on Theo Vaughn's podcast and Joe Rogan's podcast and here and there. And J.D. Vance was doing the same. Again, the Trump brand. And that was building up people to come out, these low propensity voters, not low information, low propensity, and vote for Trump. And so they walked into the polling place. I'm going to vote for Trump. I ain't voting for Kamala Harris because she's a freak and she laughs real weird, right? I assume they were singing while they were kind of dancing along. And they voted for Trump. And then they walked right out of the booth. I voted for Trump. Now I'm going to go have a beer and it won't be Kamala Harris because she's a weirdo and she cackles to herself. Ha, ha, tee, hee. Right? That's what they did. Again, I assume with the song. I'm not 100% sure, but that's my take. They didn't vote for anybody else. They didn't vote for anybody else. The numbers tell the story. That's what happened. Man, the Republicans should have been working on that. Well, the election was November 5th, 2024. They should have been working on that on November 6th. You know what? November 7th, a day to celebrate. Why not? I do not believe they have to any level that is palpable. There could be things going on behind the scenes, but palpable, visible, showable? Nope. No. A year, and they haven't done it. Trump's popularity, I'm going to get yelled at, does not have the coattails that some people think it does. Well, Trump endorsed Van Epps, and then it was over from there. He won it for Van Epps. Sure. But didn't win it for for Sam Brown, didn't win it for Kari Lake. Didn't win it in Wisconsin, didn't win it in Michigan. Coattails ain't that long. That's reality. Republicans have a massive branding problem. And it is not helped at all. It is not helped with this economy. Gas prices coming down, more energy. That's fantastic. Terrific. I am thrilled by it. Great. Let's go do even more. A secure southern border, unbelievable. Ending wars, Mr. Peace President himself. Lowering drug prices, my gosh, amazing. I don't like the way it's done, but people are going to love it. But everything still feels too expensive. And you got to change that story. Now, luckily, you've got time. The midterms are not tomorrow. They're not. You've got time, but you have to go out there and you have to be proactive in selling that story to be able to ensure some level of midterm victory. But Tony, I don't know why you're worried about midterm victory. He won by 9 points. I'm consistently worried about midterm victory. If we again take a look at the Tennessee race, also understand how much of a complete outlier it is and how little of a bellwether it is. Instead of races spread all across the country, everyone got to focus on one race, which means what got to focus on one race? The money. People could donate to one cause in order to try and get their radical Marxist candidate who hates Nashville to victory. In a general, in this case, a midterm, they're not going to get that lucky. It's going to be spread out. Well, Tony, shouldn't that be advantageous to Republicans? Not if you can paint Republicans and Toto as bad for the economy, bad for your pocketbook, costing you money, screwing you at the supermarket. Now it doesn't matter what the individual Republican is doing in the individual race because you've been able to paint an entire group of people, and that's hard to overcome. The same thing that you could argue should have benefited Democrats and didn't. And you could say benefited the Republican, Van Epps, because you could see him as the person and not as the party, will not be in existence in a midterm. And the other way to look at it is Democrats won't be able to focus solely on one. They're going to have to spread their attention, and that's harder to do. That's harder to do. I see a 2026 right now, and I'll be really getting into this on January 24th. My event, Trump 1 year later, a red tie gala. You should really join me. You should come out and join me in Indianapolis, Indiana. Trump, a red tie gala 1 year later. The bourbon's going to be amazing. Food's going to be amazing. It's going to be such a good time. And then I'll have this in much more detail as we look towards 2026. I look at this election and I do not say, well, it's over for the Republicans. I look at this election and I say Republicans need to clearly work on a messaging. This special election says the messaging isn't there yet. 9 in a 22 means the Republican brand does not have what the Trump brand has. But the Republican brand in one spot was able to defeat the Marxism insanity of a woman who hates where she lives, even though that county voted for her, which of course is nuts. If Republicans think that everything looks good for November 2026, they are stupid. Not wrong, not misguided, not foolish, not foolhardy, stupid, blanking dumb. They need to be working on this yesterday, and they're not. It will be the economy, stupid. But if they don't start selling what it is they've done for the good of the country, if they don't start putting the positive message out there with a smile on their face and showing the results and people feeling it tangibly, don't expect good things. I'm Tony Katz. This is Tony Katz Today. There we go. Welcome back, guys. Kevin, yeah, the vote totals. I think people are going to look at that incorrectly too. Because if you take a look at the vote totals from that district, right? From the 7th district, because that's what Kevin's putting out there, and he's got the link to the same thing I do over there at NBC News. Kornacki crushing it. If you take a look at every county, Matt Van Epps beat the living snot out of Afton Ben. It's brutal. Except for Davidson County, where Nashville is, where Afton Ben won 77% of the vote. My point is that would mean the most populous cities are still voting for Marxists, communists, progressives. So if the other counties take 5 counties to make up for 1 county, we see the problem. And that's why your point, I agree. You need to look at that. And to the idea that the left hates America, they actually think that they've got a better idea. They've been indoctrinated with this. They don't know that they're wrong. They're like the people of North Korea look at Kim Jong-un and actually think he's a god. And then we say, well, he's not a god. And they're like, well, tell that to the North Koreans. They believe he is. They were told that he is quite literally the reincarnate of his grandfather. So they're having a hearing on the Hill. They do love having hearings on the Hill. And Josh Hawley.
Here, I just want to start with numbers that I think are absolutely unbelievable. The cost of health insurance, the increase in health insurance expenditures or health expenditures since 1960 is up. I think we've got a chart maybe over my shoulder here. Since 1960, there has been a 2,109% increase in the cost of health in the United States, healthcare spending. 2,109% increase. Today, Americans spend more on healthcare than on groceries or housing. I mean, this is extraordinary. More than on groceries or housing. 41% of adults in the United States have debt from medical expenses. And I noticed a recent Gallup report found that 31 million Americans borrowed money last year to pay for healthcare.
I just got word that my premiums will be going up. Now, for those of you who just heard somebody engage a tremendous amount of screaming, it may have sounded something like this. That's actually my wife. And you're like, Tony, your wife sounds very manly. Only when she screams. Wow, this conversation got rough real quick. I didn't have a woman scream. I only had that, and I had this. I couldn't say my wife sounds like that. That'd just be weird. She doesn't know that the premiums have gone up until I just said so. I found out moments ago through a message. Everybody's premiums are going up. When we discuss affordability, this is it. And you could say to me, that's a Mom Donnie word and everything else. And I'll say to you, okay, how do you want to call it? Because if you don't want to call it affordability, how about everything is too blanking expensive and everybody's pretty PO'd about it? Because they are. And when President Trump yesterday in the cabinet meeting referred to affordability, the affordability hoax, that is not true. The better way to say it, Mr. President, is these costs have gotten out of control because all these people came before me and these liberals, they won't do anything about it. Well, I am, and here's what I'm doing. Hawley's argument is, why shouldn't healthcare be tax-free? Is that a conservative principle I see? I'm in for that conversation. It's a start. This is Tony Katz Today. Now, all right. So here's the story with today, by the way, a little bit of programming note, which I'll share later. I am on Newsmax twice today. I'm on at 3 and then I'm on at 6:20, 6:30. It's a weird double book. I think more my mistake because of the holidays and not figuring everything out. And they're being very cool about it. And I appreciate it. I do appreciate that. So we got into that. Do I want to do the damn Sabrina Carpenter story? Don't make me. I'll do it. I will do the Sabrina Carpenter story. Fine. Terrific. No problem. We'll get that done. And then what else do I have for you? I have that. Listen, if you're gonna producer Landon's like, oh, I've got this Sabrina Carpenter song for you. Like, I know. There's espresso and then everything else. I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea. And did you hear this crystal ball story? I'll play that for you. Oh, and then the Louvre. I have got that story. Oh, and then I'll do the pardons. Because I think this one is right. I think the pardon for the Honduran ex-president is super weird. You prosecute the guy and then you pardon the guy, and some people are like, we got to get rid of pardons. No, we're not getting rid of pardons. That's just silly. That is just silly. We're not going to be doing that. And then tomorrow I'm scheduled to be on the Sean Spicer show. So Newsmax twice today. Tomorrow, Sean Spicer, and I think I'm on Newsmax tomorrow evening. For the record, I think that it's smart to do the punditry as a way of getting your name out there, as a way of course, keeping yourself in the public eye. If you're in my position, man, do I not like punditry at all. Don't like it. Never have. Never, ever has been like where I'm at. I know some people who absolutely love it. I've just never been one of those people. The one thing that I do like is that lately, wherever I'm at, I'm able to actually engage. And they're not like putting you up against the clock. And it's not like, hey, go scream at this person for 3 minutes. Well, that was great television. It's not great television. It's sizzling hot garbage. So I'm happy that that's not the case. Anyway, catch me today at 3 and then again at 6:20 over there at Newsmax. Should do that. All right, let's get back to the show. Oh, we have 30 seconds till we're back. Oh, I can relax. I can do that. I think Friday I have someone coming we might redo the set again. I think the set is fine, except I think it could be better. And I think we need to start getting into the fact that radio is now all podcasts. Radio is this. It's switched. You make it a digital show and then you also play it on radio. I think that's coming. Why not? Life's short. Let's do some fun stuff. It's just moments before Sabrina Carpenter yells at me for using her song in bumper music. Tony Katz Today. Good to be with you guys. Good to be here. Find everything at TonyKatz.com. 833-468-8669. 833-GOT-TONY. That's how you get to be a part of the show. So there's a story about a video that Immigrations and Customs Enforcement put out. And the video was set to a song of hers, Juno. Is that it, Producer Landon? It's called Juno? Okay. I don't know the song. It's okay. It's okay. Sabrina's not upset with me. She told me last night. She's like, Tony, you're the greatest. I still love you so deeply. She never said anything like that. I have never met her. So what is the video? The video is about immigrations and customs enforcement arresting people. Is that it? Is that so? Anyway, she's upset. She's upset, and she put out on X, "Do not ever involve me or my music to benefit your inhumane agenda." Well, that's a strong statement. It's at that moment I stopped paying attention to the whole story. They use the music. She needs to reach out to her base and say, I don't appreciate that, because her base is everybody who understands nothing about illegal immigration, understands nothing about the safety and security of a nation, and she needs to keep them close and buying merch and clicking things on Instagram. We understand this. That's the game she's playing. So she writes this. She then posts that, and the White House responds saying, here's a short and sweet message for Sabrina Carpenter. Now, short and sweet, is that also a song of hers? That's one of the names of her albums. Ah, got it. And the White House spokesperson, Abigail Jackson, writes back, we won't apologize for deporting dangerous criminal, illegal murderers, rapists, and pedophiles from our country. Anyone who would defend these sick monsters must be stupid, or is it slow? And that's a line from producer Landon? From Man-Child. So the White House utilized her lyrics against her. Great. Anybody's life better because of it? Anybody smarter? Have we made America safer? You can't possibly be on the side of illegal immigrants. You can't possibly be on the side of lawbreakers. I would think that that's an odd thing to do. I can appreciate the artist, any artist, saying, hey, I don't want to be associated with this thing here. I'll talk about it as I talk about it. I don't want my music seen as tacit endorsement of this or against that. That's a legit argument. But make the legit argument. So this is one of those stories that comes and goes and means nothing. It means nothing at all. What I think means something is this pardon. If you didn't know, President Trump pardoned the ex-president of Honduras. The Honduran president got 45 years in prison for drug trafficking and a weapons conviction. The original prosecution started in the Trump first term. That president just got a pardon. Well, I shouldn't say just. The other day got a pardon from President Trump. Why? For what reason does this guy get a pardon? What's the value here? And did President Trump actually answer that, some people asked me to? I then saw Representative Ro Khanna, a progressive out of California, say we need to get rid of the pardon. That's never coming. The pardon is a privilege of being the executive. And the pardon I have always taken, although historians can disagree with me and legal experts can disagree with me, I'll talk about my take. The pardon is the way that the president is able to exercise a humanity outside of the constraints of the office. It always seemed to me, I shouldn't say always, after reflection on pardons, that the purpose of the pardon is to engage a recognition that the law may be the law, but the heart is the heart. And you say to me, man, that is That is cheesy as hell, Katz. Well, maybe. But the pardon doesn't have to have any other rationale to it except for the president's signature. And therefore, since it is unconstrained by the Constitution, unconstrained by law, the only thing that it could possibly be governed by is something emotional. Now, you could argue it is something rational that they didn't follow this right, they didn't follow that right, they didn't follow the other thing right. It could be that. But that also is based on the idea of fairness. Again, I say governed by the heart. And so that could be the only reason. Now, I say that, and I could quickly be Tony. Pardons can also be political. Well, of course they can. Mark Rich, anybody? Of course a pardon can be political. Well, Tony, it could be more than that. It could be much more than that. It could just be dumb. Or in the case of Joe Biden, not even with his signature. There's no reason for this pardon. There's no purpose for this pardon. There's no value to this pardon. I don't think you made a friend with this. I don't know why he did it. I'm not sure its value, but if the question is, can you get on the president's case for this? Can you say, hey, there's a real problem? Absolutely. Absolutely. There's this weird thing that anyone would think that the president is immune from the criticism. Tony, the man gets criticized all the time. No, he gets lied about, he gets yelled at, and people call for his death because they're weirdo death cult snuff film freaks. People who look back to Butler, Pennsylvania and say, oh, if only an inch to the right. Those people exist. Remember, Charlie Kirk was assassinated and people applauded. And if you note that it is certainly an unsafe environment out there because they killed Charlie Kirk, they'll call you a wimp. But for the political right, you could look at this and say, yeah, this is a serious issue. We want the pardons to be of purpose. And this one doesn't seem like it's of purpose. One man's take, do with it what you will. Keep it here. I'm Tony Katz, and this is Tony Katz Today. Welcome back, everybody. Tony Katz Today. Good to be with you. Not bad. Master Blends 3. It's a very, again, when I first started this cigar, well, not this one, smoking these on the show a couple weeks ago, stronger than I thought, bigger than I thought. But it's been a very, very nice cigar and great to do for the show, and glad that I'm able to do it. Henry Cuellar got a pardon. Him and his wife. I forgot what happened with them. Right? Henry Cuellar was the one who always spoke about open borders and the problems with them. What was Cuellar? Taking a bribe, allegedly, from an Azerbaijani-owned energy company. I don't know enough about the case to know where I stand on this. But Cuellar has been pardoned, and some Democrats have come out to say good. That's exactly what we want to see. Appreciate the president doing that. Including, I think, Hakeem Jeffries. I had something for you, and I do have it. I will find it. Okay, there's that. You know, it's funny. I had a whole conversation earlier about Secretary Hegseth. And of course, you would let him run a Denny's. This is a dumb statement. Do not make just statements. Say something about it. What is it? What is it that Hegseth can't do that Lloyd Austin was doing? You believe that he's incapable. Okay. So give me the examples. Because otherwise it's just the standard screaming. And it's boring as all get out, man. Boring. You ask me. Since it's my show, I'll just say it like that. Totally boring. Right on, Music in 5.
Question for you. Would you be able to clear up if you were blaming the deployment of troops into major cities for the shooting of National Guard members? Someone on social media is saying that you were blaming Trump specifically. What's your response to that? You want to just clear up your position on it? Do you support suspending travel from certain countries in the Middle East after what happened, after the shooting of the National Guardsmen? Anything you think should be done in the aftermath of the shooting?
Debbie Wasserman Schultz is not interested in any part of this. That video from Nick Balassi. Me, I'm Tony Katz. The show is Tony Katz Today. Say hello to your mother for me. 833-468-8669. 833-GOT-TONY. Find everything I do over at TonyKatz.com. Don't forget to subscribe over there. Did Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who represents Hair Perm, Florida, did she blame Trump for the shooting of National Guard troops in D.C., including the murder of Sarah Beckstrom? Did I miss that?
In terms of policy changes, anything you would support?
And for more, there she goes. I guess she has nothing else that she wants to add to the conversation. I did not catch that if she did. It's possible that she did. A lot of people are going to say a lot of things. Why? Because as we have discussed many times, and you know this, the objective is not a conversation. The objective is not engagement. The objective is destruction. how come when we say this, no one learns from it? Well, it's because the destruction seems to be a successful tactic. It goes back to our conversation regarding the Tennessee 7th. How is it possible that these people vote for a Marxist? Nashville, she actually said she hated Nashville. The candidate, the Democratic candidate, the Marxist, Afton Ben, said she hated Nashville, and yet Nashville voted for her. How is that? And the answer is when you realize that what you're up against is an indoctrination multi-decades old of a hatred of the United States, a hatred of Western civilization, a hatred of men, this is what you get. Now you say to me, well, Mamdani won. Well, they hate men, but no, he's one of the good ones. True or false? These are the people who said we need real men in the Democratic Party. Thank goodness we have Doug Emhoff and Tim Walz. Case rested. The indoctrination is real. When Roe v. Wade was overturned because of the Dobbs decision, and you saw what happened with the election, well, you just took away people's religion. Because the left was told that religion is nonsense, but abortion is religion. And they acted appropriately. Well, inappropriately, but appropriately for them. And part of this is that it makes no difference how nonsensical their position is, as long as it's on the attack. And it makes no difference how bigoted their position is, as long as they're on the attack. And when their position has proven not to work, do they change? Do they alter? Do they engage recognition, cognition? Do they see a better way? No, they triple down. The Democratic Party lectured to you about not voting for Kamala Harris and called you a racist and called you a sexist. And the election came and went, and Kamala Harris loses, and you could ask yourself, did they learn from that? And the answer is maybe for an hour. And then here it is. More racism and more sexism. You're calling you names for not doing what they want. And now, the liberal white women intelligentsia has a new one. This Jennifer, I think I might have shared this yesterday. This Jennifer Welch podcast thing where she's now the poster child for
something
the political left with the, I guess it's plastic surgery. The anger, the hatred, the vitriol. She's talking to a commentator by the name of Crystal Ball, Krystal. Last name is Ball. Did you hear this? I don't think there's any cursing in here, producer Landon, but just in case.
Something else you said you'd had it with are minorities in ICE.
I mean, that connects to this, right?
Yeah.
It's like, not only do you have no moral compass, and how many times have you seen these guys? They've got their masks on, so you can't see their whole face. But what you can see, it's like a brown skin tone and a dude who looks like his last name is probably like Lopez or Hernandez or something. It's like, what is wrong with you? Not only do you not have morality, apparently you don't have self-preservation.
So if you are Hispanic and an American and believe in the rules and believe in the rule of law and you work for Immigration and Customs Enforcement, you're a traitor. That's the argument. The left doesn't stop. They don't learn. They keep going down the road. And here are 1, 2, 3 liberal white women doing liberal white women things, yelling at black and Hispanic men for not knowing better how to take care of themselves. Why do these white women always have to save you? At least that's what they say to themselves, these liberal white women. And this is a large part of what you're up against. It's made me actually rethink my idea about suburban moms. Maybe you can't win them, but you can win urban moms. I'll get into that story in the days ahead. Keep it here. This is Tony Katz Today. Look at her on the left. That's Crystal Ball on the right. Look at her on the left. I don't know who she is, but she's wearing the Harry Carey, Keith Olbermann glasses. Man, oh man. But no, they don't learn. They never, ever, ever, ever learn. Oh, I was wearing today in the Harborside turquoise. There it is. That is the Flederman von Riest right there. That's the Hanoverian. Love every bit of these timepieces. And you want to get yours at Von Riest. Go to vonriest.com. Use promo code CATS. Get your discount. Incredible timepieces. And they're going to last. You're going to pass these down through the generations. They're just terrific. Love what Von Riest does. Love working with them. And appreciate you being here. Now, I am out tomorrow. I have a little vacation coming to me, and I'm taking it. I do plan on changing up the show a little bit, but we'll keep being here. We will keep doing. I appreciate you more than you know, and appreciate the sponsors, which you're going to be hearing more from. We've been making some changes. It's all going to be terrific. Guys, can't thank you enough. And if you want to join me tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., Tony Katz and the Morning News, the morning show I do, we do live stream that as well. And you go to WIBC.com and get all that. I'd love to see you. 6 a.m. Oh, yeah, I do 2 shows a day. Some of us have to work for a living. What are you going to do? I appreciate you guys being here, and I will catch you very, very soon. By the way, don't forget to subscribe. Subscribe. Do that right now. Thank you. Catch you later.